Thursday night, this guy became the youngest champion, I believe, in Battlefield Fight League history. 20 years old, became the welterweight champion. Beat arguably the toughest test of his career, Adam Primetime Posener. Thanks for joining me tonight, man.
Yeah, thanks for having me. I know it's a little bit of a last minute thing, but here we are, right?
Well, you did say to me I expected to be on MMA Sucka and not
I
post fight
did.
with me at the fights, but
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
I get in
Hey, two
there.
for two.
Exactly. Got the job done. Look at that eye. We are, I guess about 4 days removed from the fight.
Yeah,
Night of, I'm sure it was a little surreal. The whole sort of, you expected to be champ. You expected to get the gold
yeah,
around your waist, obviously, but I'm sure it was a surreal moment in on Thursday night. 4 days removed.
yeah. No,
How you feeling today, man?
yeah. It was surreal on fight night. Obviously, it's everything kind of came full circle, right? Like 14 months ago, I made my professional debut. Like I think this is probably one of like the quickest rises from like entry level pro to a regional title, and then I think even quicker from the first amateur fight, which was only 2.5 years ago. But now, being a little bit removed, right, starting to wrap my head around the fact that I am one of the top guys in this division in the country, and in due time, I will be on the next level.
Now I know we spoke after I did that interview, and obviously talk inside the cage is like, you want to be the next big thing, move on, get to the show and all that other stuff. But 5-0 in your career, man, like why rush anything at 20 years old? You also beat a top contender there in Zack Powell, who could have arguably, if he beat you, moved on to contender series. So sort of what goes through your head for next steps? Are you wanting to make that transition this early if given the opportunity? Because I know previous fights, you were like, I want a title fight, but also you didn't take a title fight when offered previously as well because you wanted those experience levels. Do you think if you were offered the UFC at 5-0, you would take it, or would it be, I mean, it might be stupid not to take it, but growing in your career, is it better suited to get, 7-0 maybe before going there, or are you at that next level now?
I think, yeah, no, I definitely got to get a couple title defenses under me, right? I think, like, look at most of the champions that go from BFL to UFC. It's usually around three title defenses. So I'm expecting at least a couple more before I get on the show. But I mean, it depends on the opportunity also, right? Like, if we get a straight call to, one of the UFC cards, then, we'll have to take it as we go. But yeah, no, like after my fight on Samurai in November, I knew that, I kind of wanted to slow the roll a little bit, slow the horse down a bit, and take a bit more time in between fights, right? Because I did that fight around November, and I think they were trying to get me on that January card, but I just said I was just straight up that I couldn't do it, right? Just because again, the back-to-back fights, I didn't have to do those kind of things, right? And now I did that fight in April, so that was like the longest kind of break in between my career, 5 months. So we'll see. We'll probably do like the same kind of thing, especially because title fights, you want a bit more time in between those. And how often do you see champions fighting back to back to back in UFC or anywhere, right? It's a lot harder to do. So definitely, I think a bit of time in between these fights will be needed.
With, there is a bit of a layoff here with BFL. It's April now. The next card isn't until August or September, depending on what
Yeah.
UFC has. You could arguably be the main event on that card if you do stick with the promotion and get those title defenses. Does that sound like the timeline for you?
Yeah, we'll see what happens, right? Like, I think we'll have to see like what the event schedule is, like if there's going to be an event after that, right? Because if there's like say November, right, then that could be I got the belt this year, defended it, right? Because doing all three in a row kind of may be a bit kind of much, especially training for a 5 round fight and fighting 5 rounds potentially, right? It's a little bit kind of harder to do. So definitely want to get at least one defense this year for sure.
You spoke Samurai there. You fought for them. You had a great performance in Montreal. Is that something that, could potentially play out? Maybe a BFL versus Samurai, welterweight champion versus welterweight champion?
I think yeah. I mean, we'll see what happens, right? It's like it's kind of. I think the welterweight title is kind of vacant right now. I think because Rodrigo had that welterweight title against
Yeah.
Ramsey on the same card that I was on last. So I guess now that's going to be vacant. So maybe if one of Samurai's guys wants to come fight for my title, or maybe they can't get a guy for BFL for a bit, then I have to go to Samurai. Right? We'll have to see what happens, of course. But I'm not too picky on it as long as titles on the line. Why not?
Two titles also looks good on the resume as well,
That
man.
would be pretty sweet. Add to this belt collection right here.
Exactly, exactly. Now let's talk the fight itself. Um, did it go as planned? Because obviously, your bread and butter. You say everybody thinks you're this grappling phenom. Obviously, you wanted to show off the striking. First round, you did show off some great striking. Second round, you showed off some great striking. The whole fight, you showed off your striking prowess, which led to the takedowns. And Zach Powell isn't a guy that's very easy to take down and hold there, and you did
No.
with ease.
I wouldn't say it was of ease. I mean,
Well,
it was pretty hard if I'm being
that
honest.
backstrap
But
you had kept him to the mat pretty well.
yeah, no, it definitely there were a couple positions and a couple tactics that I knew like if I can get him down, there's a couple positions I had to utilize against him that he's been put in his previous fights that I know I can exploit really well, and I think I did that right. But I think striking wise, that fight, like I honestly I did like what I wanted to do. Right, I've always said that I'm not like some submission specialist. I'm not just some grappler. I'm a complete tool mixed martial arts fighter, right? I'm an MMA fighter at the end of the day, right? Like there's tons of guys even on the BFL roster that have really good submission games, right? But whether my submission games match up to their levels or not, I don't know. But what I can say is that my MMA game is one of the top MMA well-rounded games in the promotion and in Canada for that matter.
Definitely. And obviously we see the eye got lit up in the third round with a flurry of punches to start the round. Were you shocked when those punches landed?
Yeah, honestly, I only remember really two of them landing. I remember one of them was the punch. That one kind of got me a little bit in the third. And then the knee in the fifth got me as well. I think that's what cut me open brutally. But honestly, apart from that, I think it was, as good of a performance as you could ask for from, a guy that's 20 years old in his fifth professional fight, fighting a guy with twice as many fights in his first title fight. So I'll take that performance any day of the week.
Were you surprised by the flying knees?
Little bit. I mean, he threw a couple of them. I didn't expect as many as he was gonna throw. I thought like when I think it was the fifth round, like in between the fourth and the fifth, I kind of had a thought like, okay, he's gonna try and knock you out with his big right hand and his big left hand, right? I wasn't expecting the flying knee to be the one he'd throw 5 times in that fight. I thought there would maybe be like one or two flying knees because there was the one flying knee that like I went to shoot a double and he kind of like jumped over me a little bit and then I kind of tied him up against the fence, but I thought, I'm like, okay, that's his flying knee. We survived it. We're good. And then all of a sudden, he kept throwing it, kept throwing it, kept throwing it. And then he got me with one. And it is what it is. It's the way it goes.
For sure. And I know you said, the fight sort of went as expected. If you get him to the ground, you have a few tools you like to utilize that you saw in his previous fights that you'd be able to exploit. Um, did the game plan go exactly as you thought?
Mostly, mostly. I mean, I knew he was going to be hard to take down, right? Simply the fact alone that the height difference, right? I'm like around 6'1", that area. He was more in like the 5'9" range, right? So like that height difference alone will make it hard for the taller guy to wrestle the shorter guy, and from the fact that he's from a good gym that they have really good wrestling, so I knew it was going to be hard to take down, but if I was able to get him down, I knew I was going to be able to do good work, and I did. And then if he defended takedowns, right, then that's where we need to let the striking go, right? And I kind of said it in the build up to this, like on BFL's little clips that they post, that this would be the fight that I do show some new skills, and I believe I did that.
I think you did too. You said comes from a good camp. He comes from Niagara Top Team, very wrestling heavy. We saw it in his previous BFL fight against Dario. He was able to take Dario down. He had some great cage
Yep.
wrestling. Were you surprised at all that he didn't really shoot for any takedowns?
No, I knew he wouldn't, right? He was saying it all build up that, he was not going to, and I didn't really think so either, right? Because me and a couple guys were talking about it that, will Zach try and take me down if say maybe I land a good right hand on him, right? And I didn't really think so. I thought he was just going to fight maybe a bit more aggressively, striking wise, but I didn't really think he was going to take me down because, I know it's kind of a tendency in his other fights to do that, but at the same time, the other guys he was fighting weren't the grappling level of me, right? And all the buzz around this guy's a good grappler, he's got good submissions, he's got good top pressure, all this, right? All the things like Chiesa says, for example, stifling top pressure, pins people flat on their back, forces you to concede position, and then he submits them, right? So it's like things like that that probably made him think, oh, let's not grapple with this guy at all. Let's keep it on the feet because the route to victory is clear, right? And he seemed very adamant on the route to victory to beat me is on the feet. And I think you could argue that apart from, again, these moments, I got the striking exchanges.
100%. First full 5 round fight. I mean, the last fight you went the almost the full distance. It wasn't a 5 round fight though. In your last fight, how did it feel going 5 full rounds in there? Were there any points where you were in those grappling exchanges where you were like, taking your foot off the gas a little bit to rest? Because I don't know if you heard that his cornermen, but they were yelling out 15 seconds of no work, 20 seconds of no work, 30 seconds, no movement. I don't know if you heard that at all, but they were sitting right beside me and they were trying to yell at the ref to get you to stand up. How was the cardio out there for the full 5 rounds? And was there any foot off the gas a little bit?
Yeah, cardio wise, I felt pretty good. Honestly, I know I said when we chatted on in the post fight interviews for BFL that I did get tired a bit, but I wouldn't say that I gassed, right? Like I would say my ability to keep focus and to still be able to think and process what's happening in the fight clearly was still there on the most part. But honestly, like when I was on top of him not doing much, you also have to look at the fact that he's grabbing me too, right? Like he's holding me, trying to keep me close to him. So as much as it's me not doing anything, it's him holding me, right? And I may be landing like those little chip shots, but that's because again he has his hands grabbed around me and hugging my back, right? So again, when I did hear his coaches say, hey, that's no work, but my coaches were also like, no, it's called domination, right? Like you're stuck on your back. The ref, in my opinion, shouldn't be able to bail you out there, right? Like they should be like. I remember Joe Rogan talking about it one time that stand-ups in MMA and like separations in MMA shouldn't be a thing, right? Why should you have to get bailed out of a bad position that you got put in that the other guy had to work really hard for, right? It's not really realistic. It's not a natural thing that happens in fighting. It's like, oh, you get on top of a guy and then just because you're laying on him, okay, now you have to stand up and strike. Why?
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So
I mean,
I
Joe
was just
Rogan's
I was
Joe
just doing my
Rogan's
thing.
even said he said, if the fight ends, the round ends with you in a dominant position with the
Yeah.
guy on his back and you on top, the next round should start like that.
That'd be pretty interesting, actually. I think that would change the game for sure.
100% it would change the game because if you're in mount and the round ends, could you imagine starting the next round mounted to the guy?
Then you get 5 minutes to work from the mounted position on
Yes.
somebody.
How crazy
That's
would that
pretty
be?
solid. That'd be great.
All right, so moving away from the fight, I got to ask. Let me grab it actually.
Okay.
This thing right here.
Oh,
How bloody cool is it that you got a freaking trading card?
that's so sweet, man. I've had so many people asking me where to get those, and I asked Jay about it, and Jay won't give them to me.
I think
He said he
to
only
be
made
honest,
10.
I think I actually only have you and Allie, 2 winners from Thursday night as well.
Yeah.
But I gotta say, these things are pretty sweet. I'm pretty sure Jay only made like 10 of each of them, if that.
Yeah.
So they're very limited quantity. I know he wanted to give away those signed ones that you guys did, which was cool as well. But
Yeah.
to be on a trading card, I mean, that and video games have to be like the coolest thing, or an
Oh,
action
that's
figure or
that's
something.
like one of the two big accolades in like the I guess like the entertainment side of MMA. Like being in like the UFC video game is like a huge one, and then obviously getting like a trading card or like a poster of yourself is pretty cool, right? Like even like I remember it was pretty cool printing all of these. Me and the girlfriend did that yesterday. We got these all printed out and then we hung them up with the belts. So I think that's it's a pretty sweet thing. But yeah, no, like honestly, I have people messaging me like that like they're like, oh, well, I'll pay anything for those cards and blah blah blah, and I'm like, Jay, we need to get these made. This will sell.
Yeah,
Like
right.
people want these. Like I've had so many people message me that they want them. So I'm like, I'm trying to. Hopefully one day we can get that done and hopefully get them to sell. But
Well, the
we'll
next
see what
one's got to be
happens.
with the belt on you. So
Yeah, so maybe we got to get a Champions Deluxe now.
exactly, exactly. So I got to ask, um, you train with some wicked people here in Vancouver. You cross train with Universal. Now that you're 5-0, you are the champ. Do you think maybe you want to, make some treks or bring people in or do anything like that to get some different looks from higher level guys?
Yeah, no, that's definitely. It's always been a thought of mine to travel and train at different gyms. Like funny story actually. Like right after my last fight, not with Zach, but my on Samurai, when that armbar got posted on Fight Pass, Mike Malott actually messaged me about going to Niagara. So I had a loose thought that I'm like, huh, maybe I should go to Niagara for maybe a couple weeks of my next training camp. Title fight, change things up, whatnot. But then I realized my opponent was from that gym, so
Yeah.
I'm like, well, we're not doing that. So maybe we'll maybe me and Zach were cool though. We were talking a little bit after the fight, and if we push aside everything that we said about each other and leave that in the past, maybe Niagara is an option. But we'll see. I'm a fairly open book.
I wouldn't say, talking like leading up to the fight, he wasn't very brash or
Yeah, no, he
saying
wasn't like
anything
he was a
bad.
lot worse to like his build up with Mo, I think it was. When
Yeah.
he's like he found out that Mo worked at Starbucks and then he's like, "Oh, after I kick your ass, I'm going to go to your Starbucks and I'm going to have you make me a latte." So I'm like, "You know what? That's a pretty bold line." And I'm like, "You
Yeah, no
weren't that
kidding.
level with me." So yeah, no, yeah, like, yeah, no. I mean, well, there was nothing bad between us, right? Like,
No.
it's just two guys that really believe in themselves and two guys that are trying to make the next level, within the next year. That one of us have to make it and one of us won't. But the thing is, I think he's only 28. He's still 28. That he still wins 3 fights, finishes them all. He can get that right back there, right? Gets to 12-3. That's still a legitimate Dana White Contender Series, uh, shot.
100%. All right, we talked earlier about, what's next, all that other kind of stuff. I want to give you the floor to thank your people. I want to give you the floor to, shout out what you want to do next, what's next. But this guy might be watching. You never know. We haven't heard from him in a long time. Our good friend MMA Hart hasn't been around for a while, so why don't you do this in talking to him in good old MMA Hart fashion?
Talk like MMA Hart. Oh, geez. I actually did an interview with him, so I hope he doesn't take this personally. But yeah, no, man. I like the MMA Hart guy. He's a cool guy, but man, I'm the new welterweight champion. You see, we got the new belt right here, man. This thing's staying in Vancouver. This is not going anywhere until Primetime goes to the UFC. Let's go. I hope that does not get taken the wrong way.
Well, it was good. It was good. And hopefully he takes it and posts it on his channel. I don't think he's posted anything in a while, but you never know.
That's
All right,
awesome.
Adam, the floor is yours, man. Give a shout out to your sponsors, your fans, anybody you want. The floor
Yeah.
is yours. I see you in that
Um,
wicked tracksuit that you've been rocking lately.
yeah, no. So this is a pretty long list. And again, if I miss anyone, I'm sorry. But yeah, no. I'll thank the team, thank the sponsors, and yeah. So we'll start. Firstly, I'll thank the gyms that I train at. Obviously, these guys, all help me get prepared. Everyone from Poseners, everyone from On Guard, everyone from Universal, right? Even Animo and Ascension guys that get me ready for this fight, right? We'll get into the and then the sponsors. Um, firstly I'll thank is Combat Cartel. Right, they made my cool fight shirts, and if you want to get those, you can check those out. CombatCartel.ca. Code Primetime for 10% off. And then again, if you want all the discount codes to all my stuff, check me out on Instagram at primetime_era. But anyways, just to rattle all these off here. Firstly, we'll go with Sente Athletics and Zuber Boxing, right, to keep me all fitted for the training camps, keeping everything in one piece so nothing bad happens. Okay. Um, then we'll move on to Magnum Sups and Maximus Maple Ridge for keeping me fueled and supplemented throughout my training camp. Sweet Success, Art of Strength, and my longevity coach V for providing me some top quality CMOS. Again, there's probably some of that I'm missing here, but again, I appreciate every single one of you, though. You guys know who you are.
And you couldn't do it without the fans as well, man, because, during our
Yeah, the
interview
fans are crazy, right? Also, I'll add the fact that, and I'm gonna talk about this I'm gonna make an Instagram post about this probably the middle of this week. But yeah, no, the fans were electric that night. The fans were crazy. And there's the one thing that I was gonna say to those guys: whose time? Prime time. That's
Here's
all I was
Adam
hearing all
Primetime
night.
Posener.
So
He, the new welterweight champion of Battlefield Fight League. Thanks a lot for doing this today, man. I as you said, last
thanks.
minute,
Appreciate it.
but always got to get you on pre, post fight, whatever it is. This kid is the
Absolutely
next
means a
big
lot.
thing. Primetime era is now, people.